Hello, all. I feel honored to have met uh, a really, really great journalist, one of the greatest journalists of our times, Graham Phillips. It's a pleasure to watch his videos, how he kicks butts of BBC propaganda guys who cannot be called journalists at all. Uh, uh, he shows how kind and caring he is when he uh, shoots his reports in Donbass. It's a uh, very pleasing experience to watch his videos. It's a refreshing information from the West, and it takes guts to go against mainstream media, against propaganda. Uh, I have a few words about his last video when he exposes Simon Reeves' BBC report on uh, Moscow living. Simon took an interview with Natalia, um, and showed Russia as some uh, dark place to live, where people are absolutely powerless and helpless, and where we feel absolutely dominated by this powerful monster in Kremlin. So that was the attempt to show the way things are. And of course, Graham Phillips did a wonderful job exposing the deception um, behind this propaganda. Uh, I cannot call Simon Reeve a journalist because he is deceiving people on purpose. Uh, how do you call someone who lies on purpose? A big fat liar? All right. How do you call someone who makes lots of lies and is being paid for that? I think that's called a political prostitution. So Simon Reeve is not a journalist; he is a political prostitute. So great job, Graham, uh, on his on exposing this deception. Now, about the living situation and about power in Russia, I have a few words to say about that as well. I live in Prushovka, and I have to tell you that I'm also a very, very emotional lady. Just like Natalia, I feel very attached to this place. First of all, it's my only home. I haven't had a home uh, about 10 years ago. And I never had a home until about 10 years ago when I moved here. This is my very first home. I was 32 when I got it. My very first home. So you can imagine how I feel about this place where I've lived for 10 years and felt absolutely comfortable and safe for the first time in my life. At that time, I was already a mother of two, and my kids live here. So if someone was uh, giving me an opportunity to move out, to get a more comfortable, a bigger place, uh, then I would still feel sad to leave this place. I would absolutely not want to leave. I love this place. This is my kids' home. There are lots of warm memories here, and I'm not the kind of person that feels like moving every decade or so. So I would rather stay here, even if this house was falling apart, even, I mean, this apartment building, even if someone was giving me an opportunity to get a more comfortable and bigger place. Still, I would rather stay here. I would rather stay here. But this is being just a human, just being emotional. This is what life is all about. And of course, if it were dangerous to stay here in this apartment building, or if the majority was moving and this apartment building was about to be taken apart, then of course I would be given no choice. But then there's no reason to feel sad about. But still, of course, you can't throw out the memories. Of course, it's a sad thing to do. For me, of course, I can understand that. I can relate to that experience. I can relate to being attached to your home. This is natural. This is fine. But life goes on, and I mean, things get old, and buildings get old. So there are some things we can't change. Uh, about Khrushchevka's, it's a very, very tiny place, very tiny apartments. So you need to squeeze in to get in. You need to squeeze into the kitchen, into the door, between the rooms. It's really not that much of space inside. Even though we love our home, there isn't much space inside, and sometimes it feels crowded inside. I live here with my two children. We only have two rooms, one bedroom, it's children's room, and this main room. Two rooms, three girls, and sometimes it feels crowded. It's a very small kitchen, only a very tiny bathroom. I mean, and the tiniest balcony. So I have to tell you, I can't even keep my kids' clothes in here. Uh, I mean, if I could, perhaps I would save children's clothes for my grandchildren for later. But the truth is, there isn't enough room just to even to keep their old toys or their old uh, books or their old clothes. There are lots of things that just have to go because there is no room. uh, so we can't afford big things like a piano or something like that. It wouldn't fit in. It's a really small place. uh, so I as much as I relate to feeling attached to one's place, one's home, uh, I also understand that people do feel more comfortable in a more roomy apartment, in a modern kind of building. Our apartment is also very old, and I'm not sure if it's going to crumble soon or not, fall apart. It seems so far it's fine, and everybody feels comfortable living here. Uh, Now, about uh, Putin being in power and us feeling helpless and powerless, uh, that's absolute bullshit that Putin has too much power, or at least he has some power. He has some authority. Um, he is being loved by Russian people, that's for sure, by the majority of Russian people. He's being loved. He was elected in a very fair way. That was true. Most Russians did go to the election to the election process, and they did vote, and fair and square, he won. So that's for sure. He was people's choice. People do love him. And people do respect him. He does have some influence, but he has no power other than being a chief commander of Russian army or Russian special intelligence, he has no power. He has no power over the banking system. Uh, the banking system is completely Russian banking system is completely controlled, by the way, by UK and USA governments, the joint British and American governments. Uh, our government is also working for the foreign government and uh, makes decisions that go mm, across Putin's decisions, and they make damage to our economy, to our education system, and many of their decisions are not in line with what Putin would have wanted. So he has no control over the government, no power over that. He has no power over our parliament. Uh, so our parliament is also controlled by the foreign governments. Uh, our our parliament is not even writing laws. It's just given laws written from the uh, outside, from the well, Western powers, Western consultants. Now, Putin does not control Russian Orthodox Church. Uh, it also answers to the West, to Vatican at this moment. Um, what else? Putin does not control mainstream mass media. Uh, he does have people's love and respect. So some journalists do uh, respect him and do say good things about him. And so there's this love, people's love that we can feel on TV, but there's also lots of propaganda, just false information, distorted information that's also on TV. So we see all sorts of opinions, all sorts of views, uh, all sorts of information, sometimes true, sometimes false. So, but the major uh, information on the mainstream media, on the biggest TV channels, that's not controlled by Putin at all. That's also controlled by the Western uh, most powerful people. So it's the world government, if you will, that's controlling most of the things in Russia and doing most of the reforms. So only those who are willingly working with Putin, uh, they sort of acknowledge his power over them, but that's their choice. That's their choice. I know there are businessmen who are, some oligarchs are actually working with Putin and saying good things about him and respecting him, but that's their choice. There are some uh, people who have some power, also, like deputy of states, for example. They also work closely with Putin, but again, that's their choice. Nobody's pushing them, nobody's twisting their arm behind their back. Uh, there's no uh, there's no pressure. There are no political assassinations, as is absolutely traditional now in the UK and US. I mean, UK is famous for its political assassinations, and the USA has also a shorter but still a history of political assassinations. We don't see that here in Russia. Uh, uh, I mean, I feel absolutely free in here, although I do feel powerless, but not because of a monstrous Putin is making me feel powerless. Not because of that. I do feel powerless because Russia is managed in the interests of UK and US governments, and Russian economy is being crushed with this crisis, and Russian educational system is being crushed, and the quality of education and the quality of medical services go down. But that's not because of Putin. That's in spite of Putin's attempts to uh, kind of lessen the influence of the West in our country. Uh, so basically, lots of finances are being uh, sucked out of Russia to please UK and US governments. So we're kind of uh, we feel helpless to stop our national resources, our national valuables, our national values from being stolen by uh, the Brits and the Americans. I mean, not the people, not the nations, of course. I mean, by those in power, the British power and the United States powerful people. So our national resources are being just taken for free, and our financial system is completely controlled by them. So that's where I feel powerless. I feel powerless to protect my country from the foreign invaders. I feel powerless because I feel that my country has been occupied since the collapse of the Soviet Union, since our country has been divided into separate countries. Russian Federation is only part of Russia. Uh, Ukraine is also Russia. Belarus is also Russia. Kazakhstan is Russia. Uh, Georgia is Russia. Uh, well, all former USSR republics, they're all Russia. It's all Russia. We've been divided, and uh, it was Western influence that destroyed the USSR, destroyed my country, destroyed the economy, destroyed the educational system, destroyed the medical system. It was all poisonous Western influence. And of course, I feel robbed. We lost lots of uh, national values. And we also lost lots of people. About 29 million people died because of this foreign invasion into the USSR, because of the destruction of the USSR, because we've been robbed. So I feel furious with superpowers, absolutely furious, but not with Putin. He has no power whatsoever in Russia. I feel furious with UK and US powers. That's where superpower comes from. Those are, in my opinion, uh, there are criminals running both US and UK. Uh, they are invading other countries, they're crushing states, they're starting wars, they're terrorizing the whole world, and they are making pretty much everyone on the planet feel powerless. And of course, they are the ones who finance propaganda, like BBC, like this guy Simon Reeve. He works for them, and he's telling the story just the way it's supposed to sound, just the way it's supposed to look. It all has to fit the agenda, right? His job is to make Putin look bad and Russia look bad, and Russian people feeling tired of Putin's power. But I'll tell you who's tired of Putin. It's the UK and US governments who wish to get rid of Putin. They don't want him to have power over Russia. They hate the fact that Russian people choose him over and over and over. They hate the fact that they can't kill us all, that they can't destroy our country even more than they already did, that they can't do more damage that they already did to us over the course of 100 years. Uh, they dream of completely wiping our land of our nation. They are the murderers. So they lie to make everyone feel the way they feel. They hate Putin. They want to get rid of him. That's why they pay prostitutes like that to create propaganda like that, to make everybody uh, live in a sort of elusive world that they want everyone to live in. But the majority of Russian people absolutely adore Putin. And I feel that Putin needs to be protected from UK and US governments. We are lucky to have a normal guy, a caring guy, uh, to have a chance at having power in Russia. He has no power. He needs to be given power. And if I can feel powerful at something, perhaps that's one thing I can feel powerful about. I can uh, promote this idea of Putin finally having power. I want Putin to control Russian mainstream media. I want Putin to control Russian government. I want Putin to control Russian Orthodox Church. I want Putin to control a Russian banking system. I want Putin to have power not only in Russian Federation. I want him to have power all over Russia. I mean, in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Latvia, Lithuania, in Belarus, in Kazakhstan, in Kyrgyzstan, in Tajikistan, in all over Russia. I want him to have actual power. So that's what I can do, and I can, of course, speak my mind and tell a few good things about Graham Phillips and about how I feel about BBC. Uh, BBC has no use. It has no truth in it. All those people who work for BBC, they're all paid to keep up the agenda, to show what people are supposed to see, to show what those in power want the world to see, but not the truth. They don't want you to know the truth. But we don't feel that Putin makes us powerless. That's not true. Uh, People in Russia do trust Putin, although many do not get the fact that he has no power. It's a power struggle, and it's a world power struggle. It's a power struggle between the extended British Empire and Russian Empire, and it's a very old struggle. It lasted for more than 200 years. It's a very old problem, and I feel that we need to get together. I mean, Russians and those who speak English, Brits and Americans, we need to get together and talk these things out. We need to sort them out. We need to talk about who deserves and who doesn't deserve to be in the world government, and how we're going to manage world finances, and what we're going to do about world economy, and what we're going to do about world safety, and world religion, and so on and so forth. We need to discuss those issues. We do not need to rely on deceptions from BBC to make up an impression of each other. That's what I love about Graham Phillips. He's not faking it. He's talking to real people and telling real stories as he sees it, and he checks uh, things just to see whether they're right or wrong. I mean, he's interested in the facts, and I am interested in the facts, and I'm interested in the truth. And that's what's great about it. And luckily, many people in Russia speak English, and some people in the West speak Russian. So why don't we have this world discussion of world problems? And why don't we seek the truth together and check things together, and see what is a fact and what is not? Let's do it together. I welcome everyone to discuss the issues that we have in the world today. We do have lots of issues. We do have a lot to talk about, but that's another story. I want to thank Graham Phillips one more time for his wonderful job. I want to wish him well. Good luck. Good luck. Keep on doing what you're doing. You are one of the greatest journalists of all times. God bless. Thanks for watching. And well, see you in my other videos. And I hope I'll get some comments.